Hello everyone. In the previous lectures, we briefly mentioned about women's writing as a way to assert agency. What we were talking about there was the idea constructed by the self. We have briefly looked at the lives of Rashundari Devi, who talks about herself in Amar Jiban. Now, this identity is agential because it is the women who are constructing it themselves. Often in real life, it is impossible to construct such an identity. That is why women take the help of writing to imagine an alternate world, an alternate identity for themselves. We find Sultana dreaming of Ladyland, where only women run the place. This is possible only because she is dreaming. Now, identity, however, is not always one that we make. It is mostly something that is given to us. For example, our name, our surname, everything is given to us. We do not choose such identities. In this week of lectures, we will look at how nation and its citizens were represented in the popular imagination. And this is where the framework of representation becomes important. The lecture is divided into 3 sections. We will begin with the method of engaging with popular culture. Then we look at representation of nation in popular culture through visual media such as films, photographs, paintings, and textual representations. We will also look at the production of culture through publishing houses. Now let us begin with the definition of culture. What is culture? Stuart Hall viewed culture as a dynamic and contested space deeply intertwined with power and ideology. Rather than seeing culture as a fixed or elite entity, he described it as a terrain of struggle, where different groups compete to define meaning and identity. Hall emphasized that culture plays a key role in shaping how power is experienced and resisted in every day. He argued that culture is the way we make sense of the world, highlighting its role in everyday practices, not just in art or media. Through his influential encoding-decoding model, Hall showed how media messages are not passively received. Instead, audiences actively interpret these messages in varied ways: dominant, negotiated, and oppositional, underscoring that there is no necessary correspondence between encoding or decoding. Now that we have understood and defined what is culture, which is deeply rooted within our practices, beliefs, social systems, and so on, let us take a look at what is popular culture. Now, Oxford Bibliography defines popular culture in the following way. Popular culture is a set of beliefs, practices, and objects that embody the most broadly shared meanings of a social system. It includes media objects, entertainment, and leisure, fashion and trends, and linguistic conventions, among other things. Popular culture is usually associated with either mass culture or folk culture and differentiated from high culture and various institutional cultures such as political culture, educational culture, legal culture, etc. In colonial imagination, popular culture served a specific purpose to inculcate among the people an idea of nation that would be widely accepted. In other words, it was a people's culture, and herein we see a sense of homogenization as well. When we do analysis of different texts and films, you will see how a culture is created homogeneously for a people. In this way, we also see culture that it is not inherent but constructed. By making something popular among the masses, the nationalist narratives tried to create a unified culture which was universal to all. We will discuss these complexities by analyzing various media such as textual and visual formats. Let us now look at the theorization for a while. Rajeshwari Sundararajan, in her seminal text Real and Imagined Women, comments on culture in the following manner. She writes, "Culture then, viewed as a product of beliefs and conceptual models of society, and as the destination where the trajectory to its desires takes shape, as well as the everyday practices, the contingent realities, and the complex process by which these are structured, is the constitutive realm of the subject. As a result, culture appears as the chief matter and consequence of dominant ideological investment, powerfully coercive in shaping the subject. But since it is also heterogeneous, changing, and open to interpretation, it can become the site of contestation and consequently of the reinscription of subjectivities. Therefore, cultural analysis both calls forth the critique of ideology and, given the critical function of representation in the dialectic of social process, it enables political intervention, scenarios of change, theoretical intervention, and strategic reinterpretations. This paragraph by Sundararajan presents culture as both a product and a shaping force of society. It argues that culture is formed by social beliefs, desires, and daily practices, and in turn plays a crucial role in forming individual subjectivity. While culture can enforce dominant ideologies and social power, its inherent diversity and openness to interpretation also makes it a space for resistance, change, and redefinition. Thus, cultural analysis becomes a tool for ideological critique and political action. offering opportunities for transformation and new theoretical perspectives. Culture in the colonial context is imbued with the idea of modernity. India provides an interesting milieu in this context. In the 19th and early 20th century social life, it was split into two spheres, the material and the spiritual. For example, the 19th century Bengali reformers who accepted Western modernity in the material realm, science, technology, and administration, preserved Indian cultural identity in the spiritual realm through family, religion, and community. This split allowed the colonized elites to adopt aspects of modernity without fully imitating the West, thus creating a derivative discourse of nationalism. This sentiment was very much aligned with the way in which culture was imagined. It is also important to remember that cultural modernity does not develop in the same way across all areas of the society. Even within the so-called modern sector, different institutions experience change differently. For example, traditional Indian medical systems like the Ayurveda and Unani adopted some features of modern medicine such as the standardized drugs, exams, and licensing, but maintained their identity as alternative systems rather than becoming branches of Western medicine. In contrast, subjects like chemistry or mathematics in India were absorbed into modern Western frameworks without retaining a distinct Indian identity. Similarly, in the cultural sphere, Western forms like the novel or oil painting deeply transformed Indian literature and art. Examples are Raja Ravi Verma. But Indian music, despite adopting Western instruments, technologies, and institutions, remained recognizably Indian in structure and in style. Partho Chatterjee, in his article Critique of Popular Culture, notes that the task of engaging with popular culture is not to analyze it from a detached scientific perspective, but to start from the everyday practices and forms. Rather than applying a pre-formed theory, one should immerse in popular culture to understand and critique it from the inside. Since the methods for such critique are not clearly defined, it becomes important to explore cultural works that are both participatory in nature and which also consciously attempt to reshape or transform. He provides reference to Judith Gutmann's book Through Indian Eyes and writes, Indian photographs, although they were products of the same modern Western technology did not follow the Western realist aesthetic at all. Instead, they reflected a completely different and distinctly Indian conception of reality. Unlike a Western photograph, where the viewer is carefully led from one part of a picture to another according to a familiar set of realist narrative conventions, in Indian photographs, everything within the picture field seems to happen at once, as though in an idealized and timeless space. Partho Chatterjee explores the concept of darshan, a deeply rooted Indian practice which is also practiced in Indian culture, where devotees seek blessings by seeing and being seen by a deity. This act of visual contact is believed to transform spiritual and moral benefit. This idea of darshan has expanded beyond religious worship to include interactions with holy people, kings, political leaders like Gandhi, and others seen as powerful or sacred. In visual culture, this belief influences how important figures are represented. For example, scholar Christopher Pinney discusses how popular photolithograph showing Sri Ramakrishna and his wife Sarada and disciple Swami Vivekananda are placed in front of the image of goddess Kali. They are all seated in front of the goddess. This composition, Pinney argues, is historically unrealistic. These figures never pose together like this in reality, but it is deliberately arranged to allow viewers to experience a collective darshan of divine and human figures at one glance. Today, if you visit Belur Math, you will find many such composite photographs as fridge magnets or as photos or as wall hangings. This shows how the popular imagination continues to be influenced by the construction of a specific kind of photograph. Interestingly, the image blends secret and sacred symbolism with realistic elements, like the photo of Ramakrishna and a clock, suggesting a merging of spiritual life and everyday life. The goal of such imagery is not historical accuracy, but to create powerful visual moment where viewers feel spiritually connected through sight. And this is the reason why when the viewers collect such memorabilia or mementos from holy spaces like Belur Math, despite the physical absence of Sri Ramakrishna, Sarada or Swami Vivekananda, due to the existence of those photographs, they feel a sense of spiritual connection. They are both seeing these figures even though they no longer exist in reality, and at the same time are seen by them. These photographs have also become part of the everyday life of people. Pinney highlights the political power of popular visual prints in shaping how Indian nationalism was experienced and understood. He argues that these images offer a different version of history than what is typically told through written texts. While standard accounts focus on speeches, writings, and leaders of non-violent movement, popular prints stirred emotional and patriotic feelings through visual means. Two key points stand out in this analysis. First, the nation became emotionally real to people through images that showed it as a tangible landscape rather than just an abstract concept. Second, in the public imagination, the most iconic symbols of the nationalist struggle were not Gandhi or peaceful protests, but the images of armed revolutionaries, figures the British called the terrorists. These visuals captured the popular imagination in a way that words alone could not, suggesting that visual culture played a central role in how nationalism was felt and remembered by ordinary people. Photograph then becomes a powerful component of popular culture to make a popular imagination nationalistic. Let us take the example of Durga Puja, a highly celebrated Hindu worship of a goddess Durga. Durga Puja festival offers a vivid and multifaceted example of how popular culture operates as a space where tradition, modernity, creativity, and commercialism intersect in complex ways. Once a primary religious event centered around the worship of goddess Durga, the festival has evolved into the most significant and widely celebrated cultural festival. Historically, Durga Puja was a localized, community-driven ritual funded by small contributions from local neighborhood residents. However, in the past few decades, it has been dramatically reshaped by the forces of corporate sponsorship, media attention, and mass tourism, reflecting the broader commercialization of religious and cultural practices in urban India. Today, over 1,000 community pujas take place each year, transforming entire neighborhoods into temporary cultural zones filled with vibrant activity. Elaborate decorations, music, food, theatre, and fashion are part and parcel of it. At the heart of the celebration are the pandals, temporary pavilions built to house the idol of the goddess Durga. These pandals have become a major site of creative expression and competitive display, with each neighborhood striving to outdo the others in attracting crowds and media attention. Drawing millions of visitors, locals and tourists alike, the pujas are judged not only on the artistic merit but also in their ability to generate mass appeal and emotional impact. The competitive spirit has sparked major shift in the aesthetics of the festival. The focus is no longer solely on religious devotion, but increasingly on a spectacle and innovation. Pandals are designed to mimic or creatively reimagine everything from historical monuments to religious shrines to global pop culture icons and current events. Some recreate ancient Assyrian temples, while others evoke the world of Harry Potter, and so on. Sociologist Pradeep Bose has characterized this phenomenon using Michel Foucault's concept of heterotopia, that is, spaces where the real and the unreal collide and where contradictions are not only allowed but celebrated. In this context, Durga Puja pandals become dreamscapes of cultural imagination, embodying fantasy, memory, history, and politics all at once. Art historian Tapoti Guha Thakurta argues that despite their theatrical nature, these spectacles can still generate a form of sacrality, one that resonates with the intensity of religious devotion, even if it does not align with the traditional notions of piety. The devotion experienced by spectators is mediated through mythological narratives and more through aesthetic awe, emotional engagement, and collective participation. In this way, the line between sacred art and public entertainment becomes blurred. The transformation of Durga Puja also raises important questions about the status of artistic labor and the division between artisans and artists. Traditional craftsmen who have long made the clay idols of Durga are now working alongside or being replaced by designers, architects, visual artists trained in modern art schools. This shift complicates our understanding of creative authority and cultural legitimacy. Partha Chatterjee asks, who decides what counts as art? What kinds of skills and knowledge are valued in this new landscape of popular cultural production? Moreover, the use of unconventional materials, from medicine bottles to teacups to biscuits and sugarcane fiber, further challenges aesthetic conventions. These so-called gimmicks while sometimes dismissed as superficial, often require remarkable technical ingenuity as well as planning in a cultural expression. The modern Durga Puja serves as a microcosm of broader shifts in popular culture where tradition and innovation coexist in tension and where community participation, market dynamics, media influence and aesthetic experimentation all converge. It reveals how festivals are no longer just spiritual events but have become dynamic arenas for cultural negotiation, artistic reinvention and public spectacle. The transformation compels scholars to rethink the boundaries between the sacred and the secular, the traditional and the modern, and the artisan and the artist, urging us to develop new frameworks for understanding cultural production in the contemporary world. Now, let us summarize today's lecture. Today, we talked about popular culture as described by Stuart Hall and others. We see that culture is a set of practices, beliefs, and objects that reflect the most widely shared meanings within a society. The concept of culture is viewed by scholars like Stuart Hall as dynamic, contested space shaped by power and ideology. Culture is not fixed or elite, but a site of constant struggle where different groups negotiate meaning and identity. Hall's theory of encoding and decoding shows that media messages are actively interpreted by audiences in diverse ways, highlighting that there is no automatic alignment between intended and received meanings. Popular culture refers to the practices, beliefs, and objects that represent the most widely shared meanings within a society. It includes entertainment, fashion, and media and plays a significant role in constructing national identity, especially in the colonial contexts where it served to create a unified national culture. In India, for example, the nationalist movement uses popular culture to foster a sense of collective identity among the masses. As Rajeshwari Sundararajan notes, popular culture is both a product and a force that shapes social beliefs, desires, and subjectivity. It is a space that is both dominant in its ideologies, but where resistance and change can also take place. In colonial India, the idea of modernity was crucial to understand cultural transformation. The split between the material and the spiritual realms allowed the colonized elites to embrace aspects of Western modernity while preserving Indian cultural practices. Partha Chatterjee emphasizes that the critique of popular culture should come from within its everyday practices rather than from an external detached perspective. He also highlights how visual culture such as Indian photography presents a unique approach to reality shaped by Indian cultural ideals rather than Western aesthetics. The role of popular culture in shaping nationalism is explored through Christopher Pinney's work, which discusses how popular visual prints such as photolithographs played a powerful role in stirring emotions and shaping the popular imagination of Indian nationalism. The images depicted the nation not as an abstract concept but as a real, tangible landscape and often portrayed armed revolution instead of non-violent leaders, stirring patriotism through their emotional appeal. By studying popular culture, we can better understand the ways in which national identities are formed, resisted, and reshaped. In the next lectures, we will look at textual and visual analysis. Thank you.